Welcome to our deep dive into the legacy of Satyajit Ray. I'm really excited to explore this with you today because Ray was, a true Renaissance man, a filmmaker, writer, composer, even a calligrapher.
Wow, yeah.
And, you've shared some great excerpts with us from a piece by Shantanu Ray Chaudhuri.
Right.
And it's clear that, Ray's impact on Indian cinema and culture was huge.
It was massive, yeah.
But honestly, what really grabbed my attention was this detail about him designing his own sonde.
Really?
Yeah, it's called Ray Roman. And it makes me wonder, how did one person excel in so many different fields?
It's truly remarkable, isn't it?
It is.
It speaks to a level of creative energy and intellectual curiosity that's just astounding. And when we look closely, we see these multiple talents kind of woven into the fabric of his filmmaking. Take, for example, the visual richness of his films.
Yeah.
It's no coincidence that he studied at Shantiniketan, a school founded by Rabindranath Tagore, where he was deeply immersed in painting and design.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So his artistic background directly influenced his cinematic style.
Right.
I'm starting to see the connections here.
Yeah.
And speaking of connections, Ray was very intentional about crafting a cinematic style that was distinctly Indian.
Right.
In fact, there's a quote that really captures his vision.
There is, yeah.
Do you know which one I'm thinking of?
You're likely thinking of his statement, "What we need is a style, an idiom, a part of the iconography of cinema which would be uniquely and recognizably Indian."
That's the one.
Yeah, he wasn't content with simply imitating Western cinema.
Right.
He wanted to forge a new path,
Yeah.
one that reflected the essence of India.
I'm struck by the word iconography in that quote. It suggests he wasn't just thinking about aesthetics.
Right.
He was creating a visual language
Yeah.
that could communicate something profound about Indian culture.
Exactly. And he achieved this in a way that resonated far beyond India's borders. Ray's films managed to be both deeply rooted in Indian culture and universally appealing, transcending cultural boundaries to touch on shared human experiences.
It makes you wonder, how did he strike that balance?
Yeah.
Was it something you consciously worked towards, or was it an organic outcome of his artistic process?
Perhaps it's a bit of both. But I think it's important to remember that Ray didn't emerge from a vacuum.
Right.
He came from a family deeply steeped in art and intellect.
Okay.
His grandfather was a pioneer in printing, and his father was a beloved author of whimsical children's verse.
Wow.
This heritage undoubtedly shaped his worldview and his artistic sensibility.
So creativity was in his blood.
It was.
It's like he inherited this legacy and built upon it in such a powerful way. And it wasn't just through filmmaking.
Right.
I mean, he even designed a font. That's incredible.
It is, and it reminds us that Ray's genius wasn't confined to a single medium. He was a master storyteller, whether through film, writing, or even the visual language of calligraphy.
Yeah.
But perhaps what's most fascinating is how all these threads, his artistic background, his family legacy, his deep connection to Indian culture, are woven into the tapestry of his films.
So, to really understand Ray's films, we need to understand the man himself.
Yeah.
His background, his influence.
Absolutely.
It's like peeling back the layers of an onion.
Yeah.
Revealing the complexities beneath the surface.
That's a great way to put it. And as we delve deeper into his films, we'll begin to see how these layers inform his storytelling, his characters, and the themes he explores.
Well, I'm ready to start peeling back those layers.
Okay.
Let's talk about his films themselves. Where did he begin? What were his early films like?
His early films are particularly interesting because they showcase a distinct focus on humanism and universal themes.
Okay.
Take, for example, the Apu Trilogy, which many consider his masterpiece. This trilogy follows the life of a young Bengali boy named Apu as he navigates poverty, loss, and the search for meaning. It's a coming-of-age story that resonates with audiences worldwide because it taps into these shared human experiences.
I remember reading a quote about Ray's films that really stuck with me.
Yeah.
He gave us the ability to see the truth. He taught us the most elementary and yet most difficult of truths, that to be a true Indian, it is first necessary to be a citizen of the world.
It beautifully captures that idea of universalism you mentioned.
Absolutely.
That quote is by T.G. Vidyanathan.
Okay.
And it highlights how Ray's films transcend cultural boundaries to speak to something deeper, something inherent to the human condition.
Yeah.
It's a powerful message, especially in today's world.
Right.
In an age where division and conflict seem increasingly prevalent.
Yeah.
Ray's films offer a reminder of our shared humanity.
Right.
Urging us to see beyond superficial differences and recognize the common threads that bind us.
That's so relevant. It makes you wonder if Ray, with his focus on humanism and empathy, was ahead of his time.
Perhaps he was. Or maybe his insights are timeless,
Right.
reflecting a fundamental truth about the human condition that transcends any particular era. But one thing is for sure. His early films, with their emphasis on human connection and the complexities of life, continue to resonate with audiences decades later.
So we have this foundation of humanism in his early works.
We do.
But you mentioned that his style evolved over time.
Yeah.
How did his later films differ from his earlier ones?
As Ray matured as a filmmaker,
Okay.
so did his thematic focus.
Right.
He began to explore more contemporary urban issues in India, particularly in Bengal. Films like Nayak, Aranyo Denratri, Pradadwandi, Simabada, and Jana Aranya
Oh, yeah?
delves into the complexities of modern life, with characters grappling with feelings of alienation and disillusionment.
It sounds like he was using film to capture the changing landscape of Indian society, the anxieties and uncertainties of a nation undergoing rapid transformation.
Yeah, precisely.
It's like watching history unfold through the lens of his camera.
And as his themes evolved,
Yeah.
so did his characters.
Uh-huh.
Unlike the more clear-cut heroes and villains of his earlier works,
Right.
these later films feature characters who are morally ambiguous, reflecting the complexities of the times.
It makes me think of how life itself rarely offers easy answers or simple solutions. It's messy, it's complicated,
Yeah.
and it seems Ray was reflecting that complexity in his films.
Exactly. And this brings us to what is arguably the most fascinating phase of Ray's filmography, his final act as a filmmaker, where he delves into themes of cynicism and societal decay.
This shift towards cynicism is so intriguing. It's almost like we're witnessing a change in Ray's perspective on the world, a growing disillusionment, perhaps. Tell us more about this period and the trilogy of films that mark this shift.
You're referring to the films Ganashatru, Shaka Prashaka, and Agantuk.
Yes.
In these films, Ray grapples with themes of corruption, societal decay, and the erosion of values. It's a departure from the humanism of his earlier works. Yet it reveals a deeper engagement with the complexities of human nature and the systems we build.
I'm particularly curious about Ganashatru. It's based on Ibsen's play,
Yeah.
An Enemy of the People. Right?
Yes.
What themes did Ray explore in his adaptation?
Ganashatru, meaning enemy of the people,
Right.
is a powerful exploration of truth, integrity, and the courage to speak out against powerful forces. It tells the story of a doctor who discovers that the water supply of a temple town is contaminated,
Okay.
posing a serious health risk to pilgrims.
Right.
But when he tries to expose this truth, he faces opposition from those who prioritize profit and reputation over public well-being.
So it's about the conflict between individual conscience and societal pressure.
Exactly.
The courage to stand up for what's right, even when it's unpopular.
Yeah.
And it sparked controversy upon its release, didn't it?
It did indeed. The film was seen by some as a critique of religious institutions and their potential to prioritize dogma over reason and public health. It also touched upon themes of political corruption and the suppression of dissenting voices, issues that resonated deeply with audiences at the time.
It's fascinating how a film inspired by a 19th century Norwegian play
Right.
can speak so directly to the anxieties and realities of a different time and place.
Yeah.
It speaks to the universality of these themes,
Absolutely.
their enduring relevance across cultures and generations.
Precisely. And then we have Shaka Prashaka,
Okay.
which explores a different kind of societal decay, the disintegration of family bonds, and the corrosive influence of wealth and ambition.
I'm sensing a pattern here. Both Ganashatru and Shaka Prashaka seem to be holding a mirror to society, exposing the cracks beneath the surface, the uncomfortable truths we often prefer to ignore.
That's a keen observation. Ray isn't shying away from the darkness, the complexities of human nature.
Right.
In fact, he's deliberately casting actors who previously played heroic roles in his films as the villains in these later works.
Oh,
It's as if he's saying that good and evil aren't so easily defined.
Right.
That even those we perceive as virtuous are capable of moral compromise.
That's such a brilliant casting choice. It adds another layer of complexity.
It does.
Challenging our perceptions of good and evil, hero and villain.
Right.
It makes the characters and the film as a whole even more thought-provoking.
Exactly. And then after these two films that expose the underbelly of society, we arrive at Agantuk, Ray's final masterpiece.
It's interesting how you call it a masterpiece after describing these darker, more cynical themes.
Mm-hmm.
How does Agantuk fit into this trajectory? Is it a continuation of this cynicism, or does it offer something different?
Agantuk, meaning the stranger, is a culmination of Ray's journey as a filmmaker.
Okay.
It's a film that encompasses both the humanism of his early works and the disillusionment of his later period.
Right.
But it also transcends these categories, offering something profoundly unique.
You've piqued my curiosity. Tell us more about this film, its story, and the themes it explores.
The story at its core is deceptively simple. A middle-class family in Calcutta receives a letter from a man claiming to be a long-lost uncle who has spent years traveling the world. This stranger, Manmohan Mitra, arrives at their doorstep, disrupting their comfortable routine and challenging their worldview.
So the arrival of this stranger acts as a catalyst, shaking up their lives and forcing them to confront their beliefs and assumptions.
Yeah.
It's a classic narrative device, but in Ray's hands, it becomes something truly special.
Absolutely. Agantuk isn't just a family drama.
Right.
It's a philosophical exploration of identity, faith, trust, and the very nature of civilization.
Yeah.
The stranger, with his unconventional lifestyle and unorthodox views, acts as a mirror reflecting the contradictions and complexities of the modern world.
It's almost like he embodies the outsider perspective.
He does.
Offering a critique of the values and assumptions of mainstream society. And I understand the film delves into a wide range of topics, from religion to nationalism to art and science.
It does.
Wow.
And Ray masterfully weaves these seemingly disparate threads into a cohesive narrative. The stranger's presence prompts discussions about everything, from the origins of human civilization to the validity of religious dogma to the meaning of progress and modernity.
Wow, it sounds incredibly rich and layered.
It is.
What are some of the key questions the film raises about these topics?
One central question is about the nature of civilization itself. The stranger challenges the conventional notion of progress, suggesting that technological advancements don't necessarily equate to true civilization.
Right.
He questions our obsession with material possessions and the loss of connection to nature in our own humanity.
So it's a critique of materialism and the idea that progress is always a positive force. And what about religion?
Okay.
How does the film approach that topic?
Agantuk revisits a theme Ray explored in his earlier film, Devi, the potential for religion to be used as a tool for manipulation and division. The stranger, while not outrightly rejecting religion, encourages a critical examination of blind faith and the dangers of dogma.
Right.
There's a powerful scene where he discusses the phenomenon of eclipses, debunking superstitious beliefs, and highlighting the beauty and wonder of scientific understanding.
That scene is so memorable.
It is.
Ray had this incredible ability to make scientific concepts not only accessible, but also deeply moving and poetic. It's like he's reminding us that science, at its core, is about awe and wonder.
Yeah.
A quest to understand the mysteries of the universe.
Exactly. And speaking of memorable scenes, who can forget the use of the word flossinophilicky in the film?
Right.
It's a 29-letter word that means the act of estimating something as worthless.
Right.
And it perfectly encapsulates the stranger's critique of a society that prioritizes superficiality and material wealth over genuine connection and human values.
It's such a mouthful.
It is.
But it's so cleverly used, both for its humor and its deeper significance.
Right.
It highlights the absurdity of our attachment to things that ultimately hold little value.
Exactly.
And there's also that tense confrontation between the stranger and the lawyer friend, right?
There is.
What does that scene reveal about the film's themes?
That scene is a pivotal moment in the film. It's a clash of worldviews, a battle between reason and faith, skepticism and belief.
Right.
The lawyer, representing a more traditional, rational perspective, challenges the stranger's unorthodox views and unconventional lifestyle. But in the process, the film exposes the limitations of both perspectives, urging us to embrace a more nuanced understanding of truth and reality.
It sounds like Agantuk, more than any of his other films, invites us to question our own assumptions,
Yeah.
to engage in critical thinking and self-reflection.
It does, and it's this quality that makes it such a fitting final statement for Ray. In fact, after completing the film, he reportedly said,
What?
"That's it. In this film, I have said all that I wanted to say. I don't think I have anything more to say."
Wow, that's incredibly powerful. Knowing this makes Agantuk feel even more significant. It's like a culmination of his life's work, a distillation of his wisdom and insights.
It is, and it raises an interesting question. How do artists know when they've said all they need to say?
Yeah.
When they've reached that point of creative and intellectual fulfillment?
That's a profound question.
It is.
It makes me think about the creative process and how artists grapple with these big existential questions.
Mm-hmm.
And in Ray's case, it's even more poignant because he passed away just a few months after completing Agantuk.
It's almost as if he knew his time was coming and poured all his remaining energy and wisdom into this final film.
Right.
And perhaps, in a way, he did. Agantuk is a testament to a life dedicated to exploring the complexities of human existence. A farewell gift from a master storyteller who, in his own words, had said all he needed to say.
It gives me chills just thinking about it, to have that sense of completion,
Yeah.
of having expressed all you wanted to say through your art. That's something truly remarkable.
It is.
And I'm curious, going back to The Stranger as a potential representation of Ray,
Okay.
there's a quote from Andrew Robinson's biography of Ray
Right.
that says he became committed to speaking urgently about the political and social issues that agitated him. Do you think The Stranger embodies that urgency?
It's certainly a compelling interpretation.
Yeah.
The stranger is, after all, a man who has shed societal constraints to live a life true to himself, constantly questioning the world around him. He's not afraid to challenge conventions or provoke those in power.
Right.
In a way, he embodies that intellectual fearlessness that Ray himself displayed throughout his career, tackling sensitive issues and refusing to shy away from difficult truths.
So even in his final film, Ray was continuing this humanist tradition he inherited from Tagore,
Exactly.
challenging us to think critically, to question dogma, and to embrace a wider perspective.
Precisely. And it's this unwavering commitment to humanism that makes Ray's work so enduring. His themes are not just entertainment. They're invitations to engage in meaningful dialogue, to confront uncomfortable truths, and to ultimately become more aware, more compassionate, more human.
I love that invitations to engage in meaningful dialogue.
Yeah.
That's such a perfect way to describe Ray's films.
Yeah.
They're not passive experiences. They demand our attention, our participation, our emotional and intellectual engagement.
Right.
And after this deep dive, I feel even more compelled to revisit his films, to see them with fresh eyes, to discover new layers of meaning.
I couldn't agree more.
Really?
Each viewing reveals something new.
Yeah.
Some subtle detail or profound insight that you might have missed before.
Mm.
And that's part of the magic of Ray's cinema, its depth, its complexity, its ability to hold up to repeated scrutiny and reward viewers with new discoveries.
And it's not just the films themselves.
Right.
It's the questions they raise.
Yeah.
The ideas they spark. How can we apply these principles of humanism and empathy in our own lives?
Right.
How can we be more critical thinkers and challenge received wisdom? How can we make sense of this increasingly complex and challenging world?
These are questions that Ray grappled with throughout his career, and they're questions that remain relevant today.
Right.
Perhaps there are no easy answers,
Yeah.
but by engaging with Ray's work, we can begin to formulate our own responses, to shape our own understanding of the world.
So after this deep dive, where do we go from here? What can we do with this newfound knowledge and appreciation for Satyajit Ray?
Well, I think the most obvious answer is to explore Ray's work firsthand.
Okay.
If you haven't already, I highly recommend seeking out his films. Start with the Apu Trilogy or Agantuk, or choose any film that piques your interest. And don't limit yourself to just the films.
Right.
Explore his writings, his essays, his short stories, especially those featuring the beloved detective Faluda. There's a whole world waiting to be discovered.
And it's a world that's worth exploring. Ray's work offers something for everyone: beauty, intelligence, humor, depth, and above all, a profound understanding of the human condition.
It does, and I think it's also important to reflect on the questions Ray raises in his films.
Yeah.
How can we live more meaningful lives?
Yeah.
How can we contribute to a more just and compassionate society? How can we make the world a little bit better, even in our own small ways?
Those are great questions to ponder.
Yeah.
And I think Ray's films provide a framework, a way of looking at the world that can help us navigate those questions.
Right.
His work is a reminder that art has the power to transform us, to challenge us, to inspire us to be better versions of ourselves.
Beautifully said.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this exploration of Satyajit Ray's legacy. We hope you've enjoyed the deep dive, and we'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration into the world of ideas and creativity.